Thank you. I was kind of, as we were sitting there, thinking, I wish my town hall meetings started like this, you know? How much different they would be. Thank you very much. I want to thank Tara for having me. I know and have heard about this evening for such a long time, and it's good to be a part of it. And just share, I guess, a little bit about, is that too loud? You guys okay? Just share a little bit about kind of how the book started and where I came from. You know, it was funny, we had an event in New York City about 3 months ago, maybe more. And it was called Creating a Mindful Society, and it was sponsored by a couple of magazines, one of them mindful.org, which is a great new magazine that's coming out. And I was one of the speakers on the second night. And on the first night, I had met a woman who works in Madison, Wisconsin, and she brought her sister there. And her sister was kind of new to the scene, and so we were talking a little bit and early in the day, and then later in the day we were walking to all go meet for dinner afterwards. And it was raining, so we got out of the building, we were going down to the corner, and it really started to pour, so we were just ducking in wherever we could to get out of the rain. And this conversation happens between the two sisters, and the one sister who was new to the scene said, "That guy I was talking to, he's a congressman?" And sister said, "Yeah." "He practices mindfulness?" "Yeah." "He wrote a book about mindfulness?" "Yeah." She said, "Is he going to be a congressman once the book comes out?" Yes, I'm going to be a congressman once the book comes out, and we're going to change things. And that, you know, when you really stop and you think about what we're doing here, is we're asking people to slow down a little bit in a day and an age where we're going too fast on the treadmill, a treadmill that's getting steeper and steeper. You look at the issues of economic inequality, you look at the issues of people trying to manage a broken healthcare system, you look at the issues that our veterans are facing when they come back to our country after serving us and that their families are facing. This is what we need right now in the country. And I'm not saying that this is a silver bullet, because I know in Washington there's a lot of policy initiatives that need to take place in order to help create the kind of world that we all want. But to me, teaching people the basic skills that they need to live in this world where the average teenager is sending out 3,000 text messages a month, where technology is doubling every 18 months, where most of the country is sleep deprived, where people are working harder and longer and making as much or if not less than they were making just a few years ago. To me, this seems like the proper thing for us to do. And I kind of got started. I grew up Catholic, went to Our Lady of Mount Carmel Catholic School and John F. Kennedy Catholic High School. And my grandparents, my Italian grandparents, prayed the rosary. My mother prayed the rosary, and there were rosaries hanging everywhere in the house, on every chair. And then when me and my brother got our first car, which was an 81 Oldsmobile, there was a rosary hanging from the mirror. And we both played football, and we're both quarterbacks, so there was, you know, medals taped to the inside of our thigh pads and shoulder pads and scapulars on, and we were armed and ready to go. And so we grew up in an environment where taking time to center yourself, to ground yourself, to say your prayers was a major component of our lives. And later I had a priest, Catholic priest, Father Crumley, teach me centering prayer, which is kind of how I started, an old Christian meditation. And it was just wonderful. And I knew when I did it, and then on and off flirted with a variety of other kinds of meditation, but when I did it, I knew I could concentrate better. I knew I could focus better. I knew I was more relaxed. And later got into politics. From Ohio, we have a lot of very competitive races, presidential and statewide. It's a swing state. So I've been very involved in my career helping At that point, the Democrats take back the House in 2006, was in House leadership. Then 2007, 2008, the big presidential election, really involved traveling the state, and really got to the point, the middle of that summer, where I was thinking, I'm going to be burnt out by the time I'm 40. You know, I got in when I was 29. And said, I know when I practice that I'm better. I know that I'm less stressed out. And so I just need to jumpstart my practice. Rewind a few years, John Kabat-Zinn had sent his book, Coming to Our Senses, to every member of Congress. Yeah, there is one that read it. That's me. And I tease John about that all the time. I says, well, one guy read it. You know, it wasn't all a waste. But I'm sure there are others. But I specifically read the area section about the body politic and how the practice of being aware and compassionate one way or the other affects our politics. And so as I was looking for a retreat to do after the election, where I found one, it was 2 days after the '08 election at Menla in New York. And John was teaching, and it was called the Power Mindfulness Retreat. And it was primarily for leaders. So there were people there from nonprofits and whatnot. And it was a 5-day retreat that just kind of slowly walked you into silence, more and more and more silence. And then in the middle, there was a 36-hour period of silence. So I checked my 2 BlackBerries at the door. Yeah, there's a whole story behind the 2 BlackBerry thing. Checked the 2 BlackBerries at the door. No reading, no writing, no phone calls, no texts, no emails. And in the middle of that 36-hour period, in the middle of the retreat, I really started to recognize the level of thoughts that I had, and it was like almost the same 10 thoughts over and over. It's like, God, you know, will you shut up in there? You know, you're driving me crazy now that I'm actually listening to you. And really, at one moment, found a deep relaxation, a deep focus that I had only really remembered experiencing when I played sports. I played a lot of football and a lot of basketball growing up. And we call it in sports being in the zone, being in flow, where you're relaxed, but there's an action going on as well. You're coming out of a quietness. And I remember that feeling. Those were the feelings as an athlete you tried to hold on to. And I remember that having a similar feeling at Menla and thought to myself, man, you can actually train your mind to be in the present moment. It's a mental discipline of training your mind and how profound it would be. And I was having that experience, and then, as you know, immediately your mind starts running again. I was like, oh my God, we got to get this in the schools. Oh my God, this needs to be in the healthcare system. You know, let me write someone give me a pen, please, so I can write the 10-point policy plan we need. And I just really felt like this was an essential skill that many of us were missing because society has gotten so quickly, so fast. And I remember my grandparents, you know, they have much different lives than we have now. And seems in many ways much more fulfilling to where, and again, there's policy issues here, but my grandfather got home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after work. Worked in the steel mill for 40-some years. And then he would go to the garden. He'd work in the garden for a couple hours. And then he'd have a happy hour with my grandmother's brothers. And then they would have a family dinner together. And, you know, rinse and repeat tomorrow. And then on a weekend, they would go to a park in Niles, Waddell Park, and they would have, in the summer, they'd have family picnics. And you'd throw the football, and you'd play bocce, and you'd cook. And, you know, it was a much different time, but there was that connection that they had. And they would pray the rosary. I'd ride down on the bike as a kid. They lived a couple blocks away. I'd ride down, and I'd surprise them. And they were praying the rosary. It wasn't like it was a show they were putting on. This is how they took care of themselves. And so after the retreat, I went up to John, and he looked at me with a smirk, and he says, "You've been outed." And I said, "Yes, I have." And I said, we've got to get this in the schools, and we've got to study this, and we've got to get it in the healthcare system. And he said, "I can't believe you're here." and I want to introduce you to everybody who is doing work in the field of mindfulness.